Good afternoon and welcome to today's video. We do have some interesting things going into Thursday on this Wednesday afternoon. I think we need to be talking about the fact that we are up by that weekly expected move. Patreon members already know what we discussed about this area, getting some kind of news this week, and we're going to talk about this dotted line. So let's not mess around too much. Let's get you guys some daily expected news. And we're going to go into some information early on, and then we're going to get into the technical side to really discuss what is overall going on with these markets and what is very probable if the market wants to prove to give you an opportunity. Let's go. So we don't want to mess around too much, right? We kind of want to get directly into things, okay? We do have some important things to pay attention to as far as tomorrow goes. Tomorrow, as far as it stands, we could see some volatility just in case this data actually comes out. Now, I did see a press briefing from the White House that did suggest that they may not release any of the jobs data at all for October, which I thought that was very interesting to see. I need to double check that to make sure that was actually said, but that is crazy that they're just going to potentially not give you the data. But yes, be looking out for potential surprises. That's why we are going to have the second standard deviation to the downside here. Patreon members, if we see a big upside move, we will give you that level as well. Now, there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we really get into the charts here. And one of those would be the fact that people are posting this a lot. Yeah, we're still in fear. We're still in fear. We're still in fear, right? So normally when we are looking for the top, you would want to point towards greed, extreme greed, and things like that. So the fact that we are by fear, if we actually would get something really bad to come out, meaning bad enough that the top 1% or the top 10%, the people who own, a lot of the stock market would actually want to sell, that is most likely what would be the fearful thing that turns you down, right? You need fear to be struck in the people who own 90% of the stocks. If retail is just getting feared out of something and we see one more drop, which we're going to discuss today, then it most likely isn't a big deal. We could still potentially see 700 for the SPY. The other thing I wanted to point out is a lot of people are still saying, oh, these are just gap fills before we get the next plummet. If you are saying that information right now, you are blatantly guessing. I don't even think, the type of analysis that I don't pay attention to adds up to this is going to collapse. It can collapse, and we're going to talk about some reactions to have in this area. But I wanted to show off the options expiration for next week. For next week, I want you to see all the red here in these areas. As it stands, you have a 4.56 put to call ratio. Now, once again, this does suggest that people are prepared, really prepared to hit that sell button if something bad happens. But the point here is this just retail prepared to do that? Or are the big players, the players who are looking most likely for that 700 target by the end of the year, are they going to hit the sell button? You are going to need news that actually is bad enough to scare people that actually have wealth, like generational wealth. That is the truth of it. You are seeing a lot of funky things with earnings and things like that, money rotating around in all these AI companies to act like, oh yeah, we had a good earnings this time, and next time the next company. You have a lot of stuff going on that's very fishy. So with all of that in mind, it does not mean that we can't turn down from these areas, but we're going to discuss what we need to be paying attention to for that. And we're going to talk about that very early on in this video. And when we get to the Qs, there is an important point on the daily scale. First off, we are at the weekly expected move. Patreon members, you should already know what we have been discussing in these areas. And I'm sorry if you hear baby girl screaming up there. She is playing hard. So daily expected moves, though, 688.38 to the upside. We have 678.20 to the downside. The reason I put up the second standard deviation, if you didn't know, these are 68% zones for the day for tomorrow. We give them out every single night. If you would like to subscribe, we are at the top side of one of those, but we did receive some interesting, unexpected news last week or over the weekend. So that would suggest that we do have some probabilities to end the week outside of these moves. Now, I take them for what they are, 68% zone. We're going to land in here. Something unexpected happened. I'm looking for the confirmations. As it stands, the reason that I put that down there is because 673 was a point that I was really paying attention to. And if we see a move down to here for whatever reason, this would say we have a 95% chance to close above that line. So if we move below that line, there's like a 95% chance you at least get this little bounce. And you notice that for price action wise, I brought up a lot of the little bits of data just to show you, hey, we're in fear. People are fearful as we're actually seeing things be able to curl up, as we're almost at new all-time highs. So this isn't necessarily a recipe for a crash just yet, in my opinion. Now, we are coming down into this area. As far as price action goes, this is directly where I want this market to go to. So if the 2 hours is able to come down to that area, we were able to go positive. That is better than the last time that we were able to make a higher low over here. So if the 2 hour curls down, we can make that higher low potentially at that level. This is, this is a 5% chance that you do tag that, but we do have some interesting potential data coming out tomorrow. So I wanted to give you that point. We're going to go into the 30-minute chart to talk about some things as well. Now, as it stands, this is a 2 hour potential lower high. So this means that if there was going to be a time where we take out the critical levels, well, then it would be this 2 hour has to confirm down and then plummet through the floor, right? That would really be it. Or we have to plummet down and remain below that 5-day until we start to see rolling below critical levels. Okay, so as it stands, if the 2 hour does confirm down here, I'm not necessarily holding on to long positions. I'm looking for the potential opportunity that turns around, proves that is going to turn around, and then I'll hop in here and potentially ride this thing up to that 700, because it is way more likely that we are not going to see a crash with this type of look, but instead we are actually looking at a market that is for the big players, that want to see 700. They want to hit a target by the end of the year, and then we could get a correction and it could be told to you that it's really bad, but really it's just profit taking by the rich people. I just wanted to put out some of my thoughts into my videos today so that you can mull them over and see what happens as far as your opinion goes, and see if it can help out your trading in any way. As it stands, we talked about the gap up, and we talked about the moments where you'll push higher or gap higher and kind of sit. This is exactly where you want to sit according to the weekly expected move. You're noticing the hesitation right as we get there. This is still good. If the 30-minute does curl up, you know exactly where we're going, and the fact that we made a shelf here, we could just keep gapping. Right? So this is why the downward move that we are overall discussing in these areas is if the market proves to give it to you. So you will need somewhat of a surprise based on these daily expected moves for tomorrow to get a potential opportunity down in these areas. So 2 hour turns down, the risk is pretty good there, right? We can go look at volatility later. If you're really saying, oh, there is going to be a stock market crash, well, then the 2 hour would have to curl down first, and you would have to see serious levels taken out. But for now, the way more probable thing here is you are going to potentially see one more little shakeout before you actually see the price point of 700. And the most probable thing is you are going to hit 700 by the end of the year now at some point. And I would say that actually, with the look of the market right now on the SPY, you have the potential for 700 by OPEX of November. So that's what I'd be paying attention to. It looks like if the 30-minute is able to curl up into positive territory, you can see a higher level hit. I am leaning towards that because I want the opportunity. But if the 2 hour is able to confirm down, you would say, uh-oh, we are turning into negative territory. So I want to treat that cautiously, but I understand that the buyers in this area are very good. So we are very likely to make a higher low, just like we discussed back here, just like we did right here, and just like we did right here. These are two very likely areas to go back and maybe review those times, because something very similar can happen here with a 2 hour higher low. For the Qs, I do have some points here that are a little bit different. 628.14 to the upside, 613.94 to the downside. Now, the Qs have a perfect level right on that daily expected move. I really, really like that. But if you notice, the SPY has gapped up and kind of trailed higher. The Qs have really remained flat, and that is causing this MACD to remain even closer to the center line. This means that if the Qs are able to confirm down here, I don't necessarily want to be in those long positions yet. I need to see the market prove to turn back around. Maybe it even comes deeper. But this also would suggest that being actually in like negative territory for the Qs, you can take out this low, you can make a new one. That means the Qs could potentially see a flash move to test these lower levels towards 595. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and that could create a divergence. So make sure to pay attention if any divergences pop up. I am kind of going over some drastic scenarios. Even though what we want to do is we want to be prepared for things like this. We want to understand that if this crosses down, that there is a chance for bad things to happen, but it is much more probable that we come down in these areas, take care of the gap, or come into the center of the gap, and then we just confirm up into positive territory. But since the Qs are negative in some way, you have to be open to testing all the way into these buyers down here, testing the actual lows, or even making a new one. Now, that would very likely make a divergence. What is a big point with the Qs that we have been paying attention to? The daily scale. The Qs have been really nice to us. They have helped us out when these SPY and VIX are saying, we're going to crash. The Qs keep us at a level head. Thank you to the Qs right in here, right? You've heard me say that a few times. That being said, the Qs had a big upward move, and that has come off and had to digest all the way back into the good buyers that started it off. How fun is that? But the reason that we're watching this carefully is the MACD got rid of that divergence, right? The RSI has a flat divergence, so you've probably seen me say that we could go do something like this, and that could be the move for OPEX. We'll have to see how that shapes up. So as it stands, if the 2 hour is able to curl down, you would say it is risky to be long at that point, but you want to understand that these buyers in here are very good. So you are looking anytime in here for the turnaround. You're also looking for potential divergence to turn around. And that would be overall what I'd be watching as far as the Qs go going forward. Now, as far as going up tomorrow, all that has to happen is the Qs have already built the shelf. So we could literally gap up tomorrow and it would make total sense. You can gap up and even hold above these levels. Once you get above these weekly expected moves and daily expected moves, you can use them as support. So if we keep building these shelves, gap up, build the shelf, gap up again, build the shelf. You can keep doing that all the way up if people keep shorting the market without that downside actually coming to fruition, because that can be used kind of against you, right? You need money to go higher, you need liquidity to go higher. Well, if all the rich people are bullish and all of retail keeps trying to bet on a stock market crash, then the market can just keep going higher and they'll bleed retail dry into the end of the year, take all their money, and then do it all again in 2026. So as it stands, if the 30-minute confirms to the upside, which you are seeing that from your RSI, you're seeing it from the price action at the end of the day. It's really going to look like that a gap higher can come for the Qs. But as it stands, if the 2 hour is able to shake it out, if the 2 hour wants to show people a scare before OPEX, really get them out, I would come into this center of the gap, or I'd potentially set up a divergence point. And those are the scenarios as of right now that I'm really paying attention to. I am really hoping that the market gives me and proves to give me an opportunity soon. Thing that we've been paying attention to is the 2 hour for VIX. If you go back a few videos, take out this level, right? We're like, we never took out this level. We never took out this level. We're always updating and saying, okay, we need to take this. We took it out. This is very negative now. It is very likely that before we are going to see extreme volatility come in, we might even go down and test that 1504 that I was suggesting. Because the daily time frame has overall confirmed down, you have the 50, so this is pretty much your last shot, right? This seems like the time where you need to get some unexpected news to really blow this thing up, because you have confirmations to the downside by the center line, you have confirmations from the RSI, you have confirmations with the, not necessarily price action, but the readings here for VIX. This isn't necessarily something that you would see going into some kind of crash. You would actually more likely see this moment be a pop off, and that's why we talked very critically about this bar on over the weekend, right? We were prepared for upside over the weekend. As it stands, we would look for what with a signal like this. Let's go over this, even though we'll most likely go over it on Saturday, so please subscribe. We do see the weekly chart. Something that can take place here is if we make weekly divergences by potentially 12-12. We could see actually your blow off top moment here if the market wants to do it for you. We could see a blow off top, and the fact that the weekly chart could come down. This could take a long time, guys. It doesn't have to happen by the end of the month, but if we truly wanted a blow off top, we could just see upside into the end of the year. All the way into the end of the year, I'm kind of looking for that potential divergence at this point, because man, we thought that weekly pullback was going to come. We thought a weekly correction was going to come, but because the market, and really it's just wealthy people. It is wealthy people, the top players being able to hold the market up, shaking people out at certain times using earnings and little bits of data and things like government shutdowns and all those. They're using this to go hit a target at the end of the year, just so you know. They are using this to go hit 700 is what I believe, if not 710 by the end of the year. So what can you take from VIX going into tomorrow? Let's get into actually like what helps you out for tomorrow. As it stands, the 30-minute had all these divergences for volatility. You are seeing somewhat of a good push here. You have not taken back the 5-day, but we were suggesting that the market was going to give you a potential opportunity that looks a little scary, right? It could make a that divergence for the Qs. It could be somewhat of a big drop down for the SPY. And we want to be cautious with that, right? If the 2-hour just curls up and keeps going, well, that's kind of dangerous, right? We don't want to be, to the long side if volatility is popping off a cliff, or you know what I'm saying. But more likely here, we are going to see what? A rejection at some point. More likely, we are going to see maybe this gap filled. We are going to react to about 1950, maybe react back off of 20 again to get the left, the head, and the right shoulder that could have been. And then we are going to see this start to subside. We will look for divergences and things like that going into options expiration. We are always just trying to think into the future very intelligently. We're not trying to be mind readers. We understand that the market can behave differently than what we analyze, but usually it does rhyme, and that really helps with our thought process. So we will be looking out for potential divergences going into OPEX from volatility, and we will be looking for that from the SPY. We will be looking for potential 2-hour divergences as well. So as it stands, this is going to be pretty much, in my mind, I go, okay, if this is going to be this is probably the last chance for the actual, oh, we're going to stock market crash crowd to have a say here. This is going to be the last chance. If we gap higher and things like that, or if we make a higher low, then it is like the most probable thing is we're going up to 700. We might even hit 710 by the end of the month for November, just so you are aware. So I hope that this information is helpful to you. I'm not telling you this because I'm biased one way or the other. I'm honest with you right now. I'm not in any kind of trade except for a small volatility position, very small, in case this is bad. I'm not trying to even make money out of that overall play. I'm just having some fun with it, saying, hey, if this is going to be some random crash with some data tomorrow, okay. But as of right now, I am more excited for the opportunity down here. I want to get on the bull side very much so right now, but I need to see tomorrow's data. I need to see if we can go down to this area towards 673 because I really want to see all of these buyers retested before we go up towards 700. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you guys were able to take something away and it was actually able to help out maybe your thought process going into your trading day tomorrow. But either way, this weekly expected move means what? We have some decisions to be made if we want to hold on to stuff, if we want to, sell everything, or if we want to maybe sell a little bit and leave some runners. That's always a good thing to discuss here at the end of the video. And hopefully maybe just having some daily expected moves helps you out as well. Hey, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will try to check in and make a video for you guys tomorrow, all right? Peace out.